Today, it's the last episode of the Sperdog Football Podcast, and in this special episode, I'll be breaking down episode 3 of HBO's Hard Knocks featuring the Detroit Lions, and I'll be revealing who I think are the top 10 teams in the NFL heading into the 2022 season. So without further ado, one last time, let's jump right into it. What's good, everyone? Welcome to the Sperdog Football Podcast. It is Wednesday, August 24th, and last night, episode 3 of HBO's Hard Knocks featuring the Detroit Lions premiered, and man, after a really underwhelming episode 1, the last 2 episodes have been really good. They've been really entertaining, and it's really started to pick up. I love the energy from Dan Campbell. I can totally see why guys play so hard for this guy. Like, he's got so much passion. You can tell that he genuinely cares about his players. And, you know, he's the type of presence that can command a locker room. I have questioned his ability to hire good coaches. I question the schemes that he's putting out. I think it's a lot of 2010s kind of stuff. It's not really super modern concepts that the Lions are running, but man, it's very evident that Dan Campbell really strikes a nerve with that locker room, and you can totally see why with the kind of passion and the kind of vigor that he brings to his speeches. It's just awesome to watch. I loved the intense practice scenes. So this last episode, they were going over the joint practices with Indianapolis, and man, those are some intense practice scenes. And you know, that's one of the best things about Hard Knocks is you get to see, the sheer violence of the practices and the hits, and you know, that's one of the fun things about the show. And then, you know, they had some really nice Hard Knocks kind of moments where, you know, rookie show. Rookie wide receiver juggled, and the reaction of the rest of the team was just awesome. And then they also had a comedian who was really funny on the show yesterday. That was really fun to watch. But this is really starting to shape up to be a really entertaining season of Hard Knocks. And you know, after last season with the Cowboys with Mike McCarthy, it was kind of boring. Dak Prescott and that little kid, Trayvon Diggs' kid, completely carried the show. But this year, it's all about football, man. It's all about the passion that Dan Campbell brings. It's all about the intensity of practice. And, you know, it's back to what makes Hard Knocks great, which is fantastic to watch. Now, you know, speaking about the Lions, you know, yes, this is an entertaining season, but I'm not convinced that this team is going to be any good this year. All right. It seemed like they held their own against the Colts in joint practices. I would expect them to, because, I mean, teams like this that play their ass off on every play, like the Ravens, I mean, these teams win preseason football. Okay. These guys are really good at bringing the heat every single down in practice, in a game. And when you have that, you're going to compete. But when you're in a game and everybody is kind of locked and loaded 100% of the time, I don't think they have the talent on defense to make this work. I don't love Jared Goff as a quarterback. I think that he's somebody that's going to struggle this year to keep this team in shootouts, because I think they're going to give up a lot of points. And at the end of the day, I think because they're so relentless and because they work so hard for their head coach, I think that alone is worth 2 or 3 wins. But, you know, sorry about that. But anyway, so I think that just from a talent standpoint, they're a 3-win team. And then when you add on the relentless aspect of that, when you add on, you know, the how they work and how much they want it, I think that's worth 2 or 3 kind of upset victories. So I'd expect them to get 5 or 6 wins. That's why I have them at number 26 on my power rankings and not lower. I don't love the talent on this roster, but at the end of the day, they're going to work hard. They're going to make every single opponent they play earn their victory. So, you know, I think that they'll be okay, below average, but you know, at the end of the day, this isn't going to win them a championship. They're not going to win a championship this year. Not going to go to the playoffs this year. Dan Campbell's not going to win Coach of the Year. I don't believe any of that. But as far as the entertainment value, it's certainly there in this season of Hard Knocks. Okay, so we have gone through numbers 32 to 11 thus far on my preseason power rankings. Here they are, and it's full glory. But today we got the top 10. All right, these are the best teams in football heading into 2022, in my opinion. Without further ado, let's get going. With number 10, I have the Minnesota Vikings. Okay, I think this is going to be the real surprise of the league this year. I think Minnesota is going to have one of the most dynamic offenses in football. Last year, they led the league in explosive plays, and that was with Clint Kubiak and Mike Zimmer. Okay, now you're bringing in Kevin O'Connell, who's exceptional at putting his star players in positions to succeed. He's got 2 star players to work with in Justin Jefferson and Dalvin Cook. And then you look at the rest of this roster, Adam Thielen, KJ Osborne, Irv Smith Jr. There's other pieces here to work with as well. Alexander Mattison as a second running back. Offensive line, particularly in the middle, Garrett Bradbury, that's definitely the crutch of this Minnesota offense. But I think because of all the talent that they have and O'Connell's ability to scheme guys open, do everything that he can to put this team in the best position to succeed, I think it's going to be one of the most explosive offenses in football this season. I think Kirk Cousins is going to be fine, and I think he's going to have statistically probably his best season of his career. And that's saying something because he's put up pretty darn good numbers for a long time now. And then on defense, they're getting Danielle Hunter back from an injury-riddled 2021. They added Zadarius Smith from the Packers in free agency. That's a big get for them. They added Lewis Seen, a safety, and Andrew Booth Jr., a cornerback, in the early rounds of the draft. They still have Harrison Smith, who's an elite safety. They still have Eric Kendricks, who's an elite linebacker. There's a lot of pieces here that I like, and then I like the fact that they're switching to kind of a modern 2 high safety, Vic Fangio style defense. And I think they have the talent to make this kind of defense work. So the reason why I have them lower here at number 10 is because I don't think Kirk Cousins is capable of winning a Super Bowl. I think he plays his worst football when, the bright lights are shining on him. When you really need to have it, Kirk Cousins isn't there to give it to you, in my opinion. He certainly has the talent and the coaching now for really the first time in his career to really make that happen, in my opinion. Mike Zimmer was not it. When he was in Washington, the coaching staff was good, but the talent wasn't quite there. But at the end of the day, I think that Kirk Cousins is going to have his best season ever. I just don't think Minnesota is going to win a Super Bowl this year. Then number 9, I have the Los Angeles Chargers. And by the way, I expect the Chargers to be first place in the AFC West. Okay, I think they're going to have the best record potentially in the AFC. They're really freaking talented. I mean, Justin Herbert's fantastic. He's got great talent all over that offense. The offensive line's great. He's got good talented receivers, good backs. The defense is much improved. Derwin James is coming back. They added Khalil Mack. They added J.C. Jackson. This defense is ready to roll. And I think they're going to be so much improved from last season. They were already arguably the best offense in football last year, and they didn't even make the playoffs. So I think it's highly unlikely that they miss the playoffs this year. I'm a believer in Brandon Staley. I think that they could get a 1 or a 2 seed in the AFC this year. It's just that Staley and Herbert would be making their first playoff appearances, and when you have teams where you have a quarterback and a head coach in their first postseason, it usually doesn't end in a Super Bowl. Teams like that, even making the conference championship game, are rare. So although I think this team's record is going to be fantastic, if we're talking about just pure roster, I think the Chargers are probably a top 5 team in the NFL right now, maybe even top 3. But because I'm not a huge believer in their playoff prospects, I had to put them down here at number 9. All right, number 8, I have the Baltimore Ravens. And man, their crutch is going to be wide receiver. They have Rashad Bateman, and that's about it at wide receiver. But they have some really, really talented tight ends. I think they're going to be really creative with getting into 12 and 13 personnel, which means 2 or 3 tight ends, because they have some really talented pass-catching tight ends that they drafted this year. And then, of course, they have Mark Andrews. Plus, that gets some bigger bodies on the field on defense, which makes Lamar Jackson even more of a running threat. I think Lamar Jackson's getting ready to have one of the best seasons of his career. I wouldn't be surprised if he wins MVP. This defense, I think, is pretty darn good as well. And I think John Harbaugh is one of the best head coaches in our game today. Just look at their preseason win streak. Okay, it's so impressive that they've been able to win that many games in a row in the preseason, because I think that just shows how well coached this organization is. And this team is incredibly gritty. They're tough. Their biggest crutch, I think, to winning a Super Bowl this year is going to be Lamar Jackson. Can he produce in the big moments? We haven't seen it yet. We haven't seen him have a good performance in a playoff game throughout his career, and he's had multiple games in the playoffs. So is this the year where he finally breaks through and this team finally ascends to become Super Bowl champions? Potentially, but we haven't seen it yet, which is why I have him down here at number 8. Number 7, I have the Kansas City Chiefs. And by the way, I have Kansas City in 3rd place in the AFC West this year. 3rd place. I still think they're going to be a wild card team, but this defense without Tyrann Mathieu, I think, got a lot worse. There's still some nice players there. I like George Karlaftis. I like Trent McDuffie, the guys they drafted in the 1st round this year. I love Sky Moore, the guy they got, the wide receiver that they got in the 2nd round. I think he's going to be one of the best rookie receivers in football. Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. Okay, if you have those two guys, the offense is going to be really good. You still have Travis Kelce. They're going to be just fine. Really good offensive line. The defense is going to be a little bit worse, I think, than the Chargers and Denver. So that's why I have them 3rd place in the AFC West, but they're still a proven entity in this league, and they could absolutely win the Super Bowl. Number 6, I have the Indianapolis Colts. And man, I really like the Colts. I made a YouTube video, video essay style video on why I think the Colts are a legitimate Super Bowl threat. I'm a big Matt Ryan advocate. I think he gets way too much heat for the decline of the Atlanta Falcons over the last couple of years. I still think he can sling it. He's one of the smartest quarterbacks and accurate quarterbacks in football today. I'm a big fan of Jonathan Taylor, this offensive line. I think Frank Reich is a fantastic head coach. This defense is still really talented. I think that this team could absolutely win a Super Bowl this season, because really the one element of that they were missing last year was a quarterback that could deliver like a 2-minute drill style touchdown drive, where when the defense knows that he's throwing, he can still deliver the ball down the field and deliver points. And Carson Wentz just couldn't do that. Carson Wentz would really rely on play action concepts, working off of Jonathan Taylor and then throwing it deep, and that's where he excelled. But then once the game got close and you needed a big drive out of him, he more than likely wasn't going to get it done for you. I think Matt Ryan is the type of guy that can get that done for you. So I have them as a legitimate Super Bowl contender and the 6th team on my list. Number 5, I have Tampa Bay. All right. The reason why I don't have them higher on this list is because the interior of their offensive line is definitely shaky after some injuries during the preseason. But man, Tom Brady and all the talent that they have on offense, and then also all the talent they have on defense. I'm a believer in Todd Bowles. I think this team is going to be really, really good in a weak NFC. And, I just love Tom Brady. I think you look at what he's been able to do over the last decade. He's won a Super Bowl almost every other year. So last season, I had Tampa Bay number 1 on my list throughout the entire season. I never wavered. I always had Tampa Bay number 1 on my list. But because I just don't like betting against Tampa because of Tom. Tom is just, whenever you bet against him, that's when he wins a Super Bowl. So, I'm going to bet against him here because of that lack of talent on the interior offensive line and the injuries that they're dealing with. But of course, if I'm doubting him, that probably means that they're going to win the Super Bowl. So I guess we'll just have to see in terms of that. Number 4, I have the Denver Broncos. Now, Russell Wilson has his style of offense, right? He likes play action deep shots. He likes alert routes mixed with a formation side. He likes a certain style of offense. And in Seattle, with the terrible offensive line, that offense was limited. But with Denver, they have a really, they have a pretty darn good offensive line. They got good weapons. They got good running backs. They have a good defense. I'm excited to see what this team can do in 2022. I'm a believer in Russell Wilson. I think he's one of the hardest workers in sport today. Nathaniel Hackett, I think, will be fine. And I think at the end of the day, if any team is going to be the Bucs or the Rams of this season, it's going to be Denver. The script is very similar, where they add a star quarterback and then all of a sudden they become Super Bowl contenders. I think Russell is that kind of caliber quarterback. And I think this team is going to be pretty darn good. I do have them as a wild card, though, because right now I do think the Chargers will be a better regular season team. But with Russ's ability to perform in the clutch, mixed with the talent that they have and the really nice balance they have on this roster, I think they're a top 5 team to win a Super Bowl this year, even as a wild card. Number 3, I have the reigning champion Rams. Okay, very complete roster, the most complete roster in the NFC by far, in my opinion. Number 1 seed in the NFC. I wouldn't be surprised whatsoever if they win another Super Bowl. They have a really talented roster. Matthew Stafford is still being slept on. There's so many people that keep him outside of their tier 1 of quarterbacks and keep him out of the top 10 for some reason, even though he beat Tom Brady, Joe Burrow. He led multiple game-winning drives in the playoffs last year, and people still doubt this guy. He did it in the Super Bowl, and people still doubt this guy. This team is massively talented. Sean McVay is maybe the best head coach in football right now. Maybe I'd probably still give that distinction to Belichick, or Kyle Shanahan, but McVay really knows what he's doing. He's completely revolutionized how to coach in the modern era, and I think this team's going to be fantastic again. Number 2, I have the Bengals, and yes, I have the Bengals over the Rams on my rankings this year, despite losing to them in the Super Bowl last year. Why is that? I think plain simply they were they were one play away from winning a Super Bowl last year. And what prevented them from winning was a solid offensive line. Aaron Donald went right through their offensive line and got to Burrow before he could see Jamar Chase completely toast Jalen Ramsey for the game-winning touchdown. So this year, I think that their offensive line is improved. I think this is another team where, Burrow has a year of playoff experience. This team is hungry as hell. I think that this team has an excellent chance at not just going to a Super Bowl, but winning it this season. If it wasn't for this number 1 team, I think they'd have the best shot. But plain simply, Buffalo is the best team in football right now. Okay, Buffalo is the best team in football. I love everything about this team. I love their head coach. I love their quarterback. I love their defense. I love their wide receivers. James Cook, a running back that they drafted this year, is fantastic. Offensive line is still really good. This is the most complete team in football, and then Josh Allen might be the most talented quarterback in the game today. Right now, I'm when it comes to predicting MVP, I'm in between Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, because they're both just so talented, and Lamar Jackson as well. But, I think that Josh Allen has the best opportunity. I think he proved last year in the Kansas City game that he can show up in those big moments, and I think he's ready for the moment now. I think this is Bills Mafia. I think this is their year. I think this is going to be a very special season for Buffalo, and in my opinion, they're the best team in football heading into the 2022 NFL campaign. All right, guys, that's going to do it for my list. Here is the complete power rankings that I have. I'll leave it up here for a little bit, but I want to thank you guys so much for following Rabbit's Take and Sperdog football here throughout the summer. Without these channels, I wouldn't have been able to land the job that I did right out of college. So I want to thank you guys so much for your support. And even though I will have one more video, I'll be doing a full predictions video essay style video, which will be coming out on Sunday. So make sure to check that out on this channel. But, and that'll be my last video here on this YouTube channel, at least for now. But this will be the last episode of the podcast because I still have some things to figure out before I move. But even when I move, I want you guys to go over to Instagram if you haven't already and follow Sperdog Football on Instagram. Even though I won't be posting anything to YouTube, I will still be posting stuff practically on a daily basis on Instagram. So if you still want my analysis, if you still want to follow everything that I'm going to be doing this season, make sure to go follow Sperdog Football on Instagram, and then also make sure to check out my stuff on Chat Sports when I get there. I'm moving to Dallas, Texas to work for Chat Sports, which is a YouTube media company. I'll be doing their Steelers talk show eventually. It's called Steelers Talk. So once that comes out, make sure to go give Chat Sports a subscribe on YouTube, and then also follow them on Instagram. It's a fantastic company. And there's a bunch of guys there, not just me, that have some really great takes on football, really great football analysis. If you really like in-depth, contextualized football analysis, I would recommend going and giving Chat Sports a look. So without further ado, guys, thank you guys so much for watching. And for the last time, peace, guys.